wonderful presenter, Ms. Charlotte Gardner, and our wonderful panel speakers, including Ms. Charlotte Gardner, Rachel Ellison, and Jeff Bingham. We are going to get started. I just want to go over a few housekeeping rules. So for number one, please make sure that your phones are silenced during this time. Yeah, I think we all heard that one. Okay, okay. And number two, please be respectful of whoever is speaking. Please no cutting one another off. That's more so for the speakers. And also for the virtual attendees, please keep yourself muted at all times. I do not want to have to mute you. I'm not a mean person in real life, I promise. And also, last one, please keep all questions until the end. We will have a panel discussion and then we'll open it up for a Q&A. So please write down your questions and we'll be happy to answer them at the end. All right, I'll turn it over to Ms. Charlotte Gardner.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want you to tell yourselves that I am welcomed in this space, in this place, because I belong to be part of this conversation. So tell yourself now, I am welcome. Thank you so much for your presence on today. This humanization versus criminalization is exploring alternative ways to address and uplift people with lived experience. And it is in with partnership of the Bring America Home campaign and the National Coalition for the Homeless. What is criminalization, first of all? Well, criminalization of acts of those experiencing homelessness turns for survival often causes a rise in hate crimes against those engaging in life-sustaining behavior. Simply put, it is what you do every day being turned into an illegal act. Just daily survival. And it causes prohibiting sitting, lying, sleeping, or camping in a public, citywide, or particular public space. There are cities that have ordinances called the criminality ordinances, which actually means that these people cannot participate, sit down, lie down in spaces or places, and they have time constraints on that, such as from dusk to dawn, or more currently updated in the city I come from, 24/7. Now you think about that. You cannot lodge, you cannot live, you can't sleep in your vehicle. Well, what else do you have? You have only the bare things what you're left from. And here they're causing that to be made into a crime. You can't lauder, you can't loaf, you get charged with vagrancy, or in some places, you just flat out get arrested. Bus stops, platforms for railway systems, all of these places are off limits simply because the plight of homelessness is being criminalized. Next slide, please. And there's a documented relationship between the appearance of criminalization of homelessness laws and the increase of hate crimes or violence against the homeless people. One possible explanation for this is the message that criminalizing homelessness sends to the general public. Homeless people do not matter and are not worthy of living in our city. What an idiotic, absurd notion that is. All humans have rights. Right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think I read that somewhere in this nation's great constitution. Okay, let's keep moving. We have the timeline of the criminalization efforts. We have several cases here, as you can see on the screen. You're looking at Martin versus the City of Bowes. Cicero Institute pushes to criminalize homelessness. Executive order ending crime and disorder on American streets, or the most famous one right here, City of Grants Pass versus Johnson. We had high hopes when this initiative was going. We said, if we win here, maybe we can get some relief from the acts, from the criminalization, from the persecution. If it's not upheld by the Supreme Court, maybe we can get a reprieve. But in actuality, it absolutely was upheld, which causes an extreme uptake in the efforts and the criminalization and the persecution and the harassment and the mistreatment of those people who are merely surviving the best way they can. And criminalization of homelessness is increasing because after that decision made on June 24th, cities across the country have introduced over 320 bills. 220 of those have passed. So you see, the license has been issued and they are now covered according to the law to do the things that they did. Homelessness has been increasing as well over time and is likely to continue despite these ordinances simply because, guess what? They do not solve the root problem. The problem is homelessness, not criminal crimes being committed. But okay. Because most of these ordinances have been passed recently, there's not yet enough data available to determine whether homelessness itself is increasing in those cities. However, some research has been done to determine if ordinances do generally increase homelessness. Well, duh. If I can't be nowhere, I can't get nowhere, huh? Next screen. Criminalization does not reduce homelessness, period, point blank. 1.6% increase in individual homelessness, and there has been 2.2% increase in unsheltered homelessness. Individual level cost and no community benefits. Ordinances increase financial burdens, legal consequences, reduce access to services, and increase vulnerability. Criminal records make it challenging for individuals to secure employment and find houses. So, what does that create? That creates a rabbit hole to which we sometimes fall. Because here I am, I presented my service provider, I present for assistance, I present for help, but I get arrested because I have outstanding warrants, I have outstanding tickets for being homeless. Wow. That's too much. Criminalization also perpetuates the stigma because it reinforces negativity associated of crime with people experiencing homelessness. There is already an overt opinion that all homeless people are criminals. We don't want them in our neighborhood. Crime increases. And all they did was saw somebody walk by, lay on the sidewalk, or ask for some help. Oh, my dog got stole. How come your dog didn't run away? Okay, okay, okay. Local jails, oh my God. 5.6 million people cycle through local jails each year. I think that's tripled in Harris County. 205,000 people experiencing homelessness are booked into jails each year. 4.5% of jail bookings are of the unhoused population. My God, today. So I just am pondering in my mind. They have statistics that say what it costs per day to house someone in jail. What would happen if those funds would be converted into resources to eradicate homelessness? Well, I'm a dreamer, but I stand on the fact that the bottom line is criminalization exacerbates this situation. People experiencing homelessness are more likely to be booked into jail multiple times a year. 42% of unhoused people experience 2 or 3 bookings compared to 20% of the housed people. My God, those numbers don't add up the correct way. Maybe we should lock up the housed people a little more. Bring them stats in the even tone. But yes, next slide, please. Unhoused receive almost 2 times more property violations compared to the house. And y'all can see the numbers here, the violent ones. These are your murderers and all of these type of things. And well, DUI and traffic violations could be considered in that same bunch almost. Because you know, a car is considered a deadly weapon in case you didn't know. Okay, we have violent, and then we have nonviolent, which is typically used to describe those who are unhoused. For the most part, we are definitely not violent. We are just trying to survive. Next slide, please. Of those jailed, unhoused people are 2 times more likely to be booked into jail multiple times a year. And here we have those statistics right here. A whopping 4% of everybody in the house or the unknown housing status says 96%. How many of y'all think that we are hid in there somewhere too? Because, you know, they like to play tricks with numbers. So we're there. Here's your 20% of 2 or more bookings in just 1 year. Why do I have to go to jail or get booked 2 or 3 times when I still didn't have anywhere to stay for a whole year? Don't make sense to me. 80% at least one time. And here we go right here with the 58% one booking in 12 months. Those are astronomical figures that show the depth and the breadth of criminalization of unhoused people. Preliminary reports indicate criminalization does not reduce homelessness. A study conducted by researchers from the University of Texas at Arlington and the University of Central Florida municipalities with ordinances criminalizing behaviors associated with homelessness. This is from 2007 to 2020 found in cities with criminalization ordinance, individual homelessness increased by 1.6%. In cities with a criminalization ordinance, unsheltered homelessness did not change. Why? Because probably we were already locked up, huh? Overall, criminalization has no preventative effect. Of course not, unless you just look at the fact that we do get to get inside for a while. But we come back to the same problems. You've heard about the effects of putting criminalization at the forefront. Now let's take a look at what it would mean to uplift and humanization in the same way. What is humanization? Simply put, it's the process of making something less unpleasant and more suitable for people. I want to say that again. The process of making something less unpleasant, such as the unpleasantries of incarceration, and more suitable for people, such as providing housing. The process of showing that someone has the qualities, weaknesses, etc., that are typical of a human in a way that makes you more likely to feel sympathy for them, to make something or someone humane, kind, and gentle. We are all human beings, and we all deserve the right to freedom to pursue the American dream. Why is humanization important? Well, humanization is important because it produces dignity, respect, and understanding among individuals and groups. Oh, that's worth repeating too. Especially those three words: dignity, respect, and understanding. A lot of people see people that are unhoused and they don't understand. They make comments such as, oh, they want to be there, or they could do better if they wanted to, or they just, all they have to go is to these places. They can get help. But if you don't understand the root of the situation, you definitely cannot understand the fruit that was produced therein. It encourages viewing adversaries or differing perspectives with empathy, leading to more constructive dialogues and solutions. Humanization acts to help prevent cruelty and aggression, making actions toward others appear as the right thing to do. And you know, just like negativity catches on, positivity will react and respond within the same way, providing dignity, respect, and understanding. NCH prioritizes humanization in our work in alignment with our mission and our core values to center the voices of people with lived experience. And these are some of the ways we do that. And now I defer to Adora.
Thank you, Charlotte. That was so great. I'm just going to give some brief explanations of some of the programs that the National Coalition for the Homeless, we do have and encourage you all to sign up for if any of them interest you. The first one we have is the Faces of Homelessness Speakers Bureau, and what it is, we just shorten it for the Speakers Bureau. And what it is an opportunity for those with lived experience to come together and to inform organizations, groups, and people about their life stories, about the positives and the negatives that they had to go through to become who they are today. And what it's geared towards doing is just uplifting the thought process that people with lived experience, those who are experiencing homelessness, those who have experienced it in the past, that we are no different from those that are in the rooms, that are educated, that are, and that are just well to do or better off than what most people would consider those experiencing homelessness to be. And it's usually comprised of people who understands what being experiencing homelessness feels like and looks like. And we just want to make sure that we are dispelling the stigma that those experiencing homelessness are useless because they are anything but. Next, we have the Lived Experience Training Academy, and what it is, we actually shortened it to LIDA. It's a virtual, so that's fully online, inclusive professional development program initiated by NCH. And what this does is it prepares those with lived experience with much needed information to go into their communities, into their congressional areas, and talk to other constituents about what it is to experience homelessness, and just having and also providing professional development that will also certify you as well. So you do get a full live certificate after you finish, and it also, you are free to sign up for that as well. LIDA is pretty much utilized as a vehicle to help the growing silenced and unhoused population seeking justice, equality, and freedom have a voice and be able to learn while they're expanding on their voices. Next, we have the state captains. The state captains is actually a newer program for our organization that we introduced officially at the beginning of this year. And our state captains are leaders within their communities that act as liaisons and coordinate among other state leaders, bridging the gap between national, state, and local work towards ending homelessness. This is a volunteer opportunity where we are bringing together those who are already doing the work within their states and their local communities and giving them leadership roles within our organization as well, with the support of and in coordination with the national movement and, of course, other national organizations such as NCH. So you build your network as well while you're doing the work that you're already doing. And then last but not least, we have our technical assistance program. As you can imagine, with the new administration and a lot of funding cuts, that is currently on hold for right now, but it is definitely a worthwhile experience. The technical assistance program, it gives people with lived experience the opportunity to walk into rooms like HUD, things like that. And they get to provide their expertise to legislators and lawmakers and actually help with creating the framework for a lot of the policies that are put into place and have been enacted today. So, now that I've given you the spill on all of the programs, where do we go from here? So basically, we humanize people by recognizing that we all have free will. They can decide and know what is right and best for them at all times. And it doesn't take a government or a caseworker to let us know those things. We ensure that people who are most impacted are in the driver's seat, deciding the best solutions and where we go from here, which, much like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the programs that we do have, they are centered on those with lived experience, and we're at the forefront. Honestly, 90% of our staff or more at this point have all personally experienced homelessness at some way, shape, form, or another. So we do want to make sure that we are doing the same for our brothers and sisters that have gone through the same thing. We humanize people by providing speaking and leadership opportunities, much like I said earlier. So I won't go into that again. But the best way to humanize people in our experience with lived expertise is to let people with the experience speak for themselves. And with that, we are going to head into our panel so that our people with lived experience can speak for themselves. And we're going to have a line of questioning for them. But first, I will divert to them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their life stories so you can understand where they've come from. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I know nobody in this room or online know who I am. Oh, I'm just joking. My name is Charlotte Garner. I'm an individual with lived experience, and I hail from the city of Houston. I'm a staunch advocate. I've been doing this type of work for 15 years. I have no intention of stopping, and I believe to my soul that homelessness, unhoused, criminalization can be turned into humanization if we just lend a helping hand to one another, use our voice. Let's make this choice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Bingham, and I'm out of the DMV, the Maryland area. I'm also a person with lived experience. I've had the privilege of being a part of the NCH's Speakers Bureau. I'm also co-chair of the Prince George's County Maryland People with Lived Experience Committee. I've been doing this work now for 12 years, and after my experience, I decided that someone with lived experience back then needs to be on the inside, helping those that are sleeping on the outside. So I've been part of numerous programs. I used to run the men's shelter for Prince George's County, Maryland. Used to be the director there, and I'm currently serving as manager and team lead of a permitted supported housing program in Maryland that houses 61 units and 87 different families.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rochelle Ellison. I'm from Washington, D.C. Housing first saved my life. I'm a lived person with lived experience with 17 years of being chronically homeless with co-occurring disorders. And today I've been doing this work for 11 years, as long as I've been clean. I'm a speaker and advocate for the National Coalition for the Homeless. I'm the assistant director of an organization called People for Fairness Coalition. I sit on the Interagency Council on Homelessness in the advocate seat. I'm on the Way Home Steering Committee. I'm on the Guest Advisory Board and many, many other hats that I wear. But Housing First absolutely saved my life. I'm a success story who graduated from the organization after being there for 16 years.
Thank you so much to our speakers for that wonderful introduction. And with that, we will get right into the first question, and we'll start with some ethical storytelling. Um, so, Speakers, we would like to know, when media and advocates choose to share stories of hardship, what are the ethical guardrails that must be maintained to ensure the person's vulnerability is not exploited for shock value or fundraising, but instead presented with integrity and agency?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, because they have availed themselves, do not think that the situation ended there. There has to be a modum of aftercare. You have to make arrangements to take care of those people, because it's just like a sore with a scab. Every time you pull the scab off, the sore is going to bleed again. And then those people need to be compensated for their stories, because they're going to generate millions of dollars of funding. So why not compensate those people in some specific way that will be beneficial to them and something that will actually be helpful? I actually think that storytelling could be a tool that, if it was used properly, could actually be a vehicle of transportation for restoration for people experiencing homelessness.
I think we heard a very powerful story today from Miss Rashida Jameson, and how her story was exploited, and she would never gave permission to even share her story. So when we're talking about storytelling of each and every one of us in this room, we first and foremost have to have permission. After that permission, we need to educate the people who are asking the questions. Educate them on what it means to be trauma informed. Educate them understanding that, as she just mentioned, that you're pulling off that scab every time you ask that same question. And once they are educated, we need to ensure that the people who are being interviewed and the people whose story is being told also have outlets for self-care. That's very important. And when we're talking about when those stories are shared, most of the time it is for some fundraising. It is for some to give back. So let's make sure that we always give back to the person who is sharing their story.
And for myself, my answer is going to be a little bit different, because I believe when I'm sharing my story, I have to heal from the topics that I'm being transparent about. And that's up to me to transform, for the transformation to take place, heal from the trauma. And when I'm healing from the trauma, then I can share that part of my story freely. So the only thing that I ask is, when they're doing links or they can use me for fundraising. I don't care, because if I'm helping somebody anywhere in this country or outside this country, then I'm being used as a vessel, so be it. And I don't always need to be compensated, because sometimes I do this on a volunteer basis, or just giving back, because you got to give back what you got in order to keep it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have a problem with, I just make sure that if they're doing links or they're sharing stories, that I get to see the story before it goes out, or get to see the link so I can approve it before it goes out. But I just feel like God saved me for a reason. So if you got to use me, use me.
Hallelujah. Thank you, speakers. On to our next question. We are going to be challenging the label. So, the term the homeless often reduces a person to their situation. What is the practical harm in using this kind of dehumanizing collective language? And what specific language shifts sorry, and what specific language shifts can organizations and the media adopt to immediately humanize the narrative?
Those who provide services for people experiencing being unhoused have to really be careful, extra careful, because terms like homelessness, why can't you say homeless more? Okay, they make and put that person in a subdued position, a sub opinion of themselves. You know that I have less. This is rubbing, say, salt in the wound, and the terminology that they use makes people's self-esteem torn down, and they begin to feel homeless, and they begin to feel hopeless. And so it just exploits and emphasizes the situation. What should be done is, do you call your other clients? Do you say, can you come in, Mr. House person, when your clients come to see you? So if they don't have to have a label, if they're clients, if they're patients, if whatever the labels that they use for the paying group or for the people who are housed, why can't there be a consistency of the language? Because we're all human beings. We should be addressed in the same manner.
And for me, I ask everyone to hold on to your hats for a second. If it's personal about me, please call me homeless. I don't want the dance around. I don't want you to find a nice way to dress it up. I want you to understand I need a place to live. So don't call me part of the homeless. Yes, my situation is I am homeless. There's a difference there. Now, though that's it may be a stigmatism for them. Yes, the unhoused. But for me personally, I'm a black male. I'm not part of the black community. I am a black male. So if I don't have a house and a key, I'm homeless.
For me, there are different stages of change. And my pre contemplation turned to contemplation the moment that somebody treated me with dignity and respect, when somebody called my name and I didn't feel invisible anymore. So I say our unhoused constituents or our unhoused neighbors, and I make sure that I'm standing out there with them when I'm telling them those things because that's the population that I come from.
Also, let's not forget that we also could just call them people experiencing homelessness because homeless is not the end of the road. It's just a part of the story, a part of the journey at this point. So you experience homelessness right now, but that does not mean it will be forever. So moving on to our next question, we're going beyond the statistics. Policymakers often focus on macro data points. Can you share an example of how a single humanizing story or personal experience fundamentally changed the way a policy or funding decision was approached in your work?
Contemplating that question, the first thing that came to my mind was with the local consumer advisory board that I was a part of. We wanted to find a way to express our gratitude to our donors, to our board, and to our funders. And we did a simple thing. We took crayons and markers and we wrote thank you on a piece of paper and held it up, and we took pictures. And the response when we sent those pictures to those people was no, thank you. So that's what I thought about. That was a single simple act that humanized us in the eyes of the people who we were probably numbers and funding and decision making without a face.
And Adora, can you ask that question again, please?
Of course, in a second. Okay. Um, Again, we are moving beyond the statistics. Policymakers often focus on macro data points. Can you share an example of how a single humanizing story or personal experience fundamentally changed the way a policy or funding decision was approached in your work?
I think having the privilege of servicing the community after COVID, there was a new term that many of us are used to now. It's called the Alice Group. And that's, if you're not familiar with that, it's the income constrained group of people, but they're employed. And that number just shot through the roof when COVID hit. And I had a case that we helped to get into housing. A father with 5 children and a mother had left. They're all living in their van. The father died. 4 of the kids went to stay with the grandparents' family who were able to get on their feet after COVID and were able to get employed. And one moved on to his own life, and then one was still in our program. But all he knew was living in the back of a van. And after 7 years of living in our program, we were able to get him into a vocational program where he obtained his certified mechanics license. And 2 miles from where he lives in our permanent supported housing, he now manages a Jiffy Lube. And he's doing very well. And hopefully he'll move out and not just move out, but become a homeowner. But his particular story, once it broke the news, it really shed light to the community about that Alice group that is out there. That group that services, the coffees in the six-figure neighborhoods and your waiters that you tip when you leave, but they can't afford to live where you live at. And they can't afford to necessarily leave your area because the transportation doesn't go there because they don't want the bus routes and the train stations there. So they do live in their cars and they do go to the Planet Fitness and all the gyms to take a shower and to put on their smiles and to come serve. So that was one of the stories that really touched me and made a difference.
Something that made a difference to me. I'm the assistant director at an organization called People for Fairness Coalition, along with being a speaker and advocate for NCH. And I go outside and front door services, boots on the ground, outreach, doing HMIS, sitting at the cap table. I'm advocating for people to be on the case conference so they can get a voucher taken from the homeless to the streets, and they have nowhere to use the restroom. So the Michael Stoops Anti-Discrimination Act, which came out in PFFC, was a part of helping to bring about. I wasn't there then, but it became the Human Rights Enhancement Act, which made the unhoused individuals a protected class where they have a right to go in to use a restroom even if they're not buying anything. So we go out there and we educate them on the Human Rights Enhancement Act so that they have a clean restroom to go use so that they don't have to dehumanize themselves or have a low self-esteem of using the restroom outside. And that's the first thing that came to my mind.
I'd also like to answer this question too, because I ended up falling into homelessness after emancipating from foster care. And, when you think of foster care, you think that the government is supposed to be your mom and your dad because everybody else has moms and dads, right? And, that didn't happen for me. I saw a lot of gaps in the system, and they had a program for youth that were emancipating, which, was supposed to be able to give you like a housing choice voucher. You had a certain amount of years, towards a working program. You could work and be in school and stuff like that. But to my surprise, as soon as I was old enough for that program, the administration basically gutted the funding, and the program was not accepting any applications at that time. So that was the reason that I experienced homelessness for upwards of a year. And it compelled me to go and share my story in my local committee, who was actually working on building I want to say residential slash affordable housing and like a youth center and things like that. And there was a point in time where I had to ask them, well, you guys are building this and you're about to spend millions and millions of dollars on this, but for the people, for the young youth that are just coming out of the system that need a place to live, that are supposed to have those opportunities given to them because we're wards of the state, you've gutted it. And I had to literally, I don't want to say that I, ripped one into them, but, as political as you could be, diplomatic as you can be, I had to tell them that this is not right, and that youth are supposed to be our future, but you're stealing theirs by not giving them an affordable place to live. At that time, I was simultaneously working 3 jobs. I was in school for 2 degrees, and I didn't have a place to live. So I was couch surfing for upwards of a year, and that didn't feel good. And my grades showed it. My performance at work showed it. And it took Ben Carson was the, secretary of HUD at the time during the first Trump administration. And it took me addressing a group of CEOs and executives and regional directors and letting them know that we're the people that are supposed to create the laws for you guys in the future, and you're cutting our legs from under us. And within 4 months, the same housing program that was gutted for funding was not only reinstated, but it was made on demand for all youth aging out of the system and timed with their emancipation. So now youth don't have to fall into homelessness in order to get a place to stay after they leave foster care. So that my story changed Ben Carson's, way of thinking, and they signed it into law. So stories are very important. Stories are very important. And on to the next question. Speaking of trauma, we're going to dive into the trauma lens. Understanding that homelessness is often a result of or contributor to significant trauma. How must human centered services differ from traditional compliance focused models to truly facilitate healing and stability?
First of all, they have to be comprehensive in nature. You have people who have multiple needs, who have multiple chronic diseases, who have multiple conditions, and they're in various areas, not just one thing. Health care, housing, yes. Mental health, yes. Substance abuse, yes. The background, the criminalization, 1,000 different things that need to be addressed. How are you going to send that individual with one care plan? It has to be comprehensive. Uh, I'm probably going to create some ire by the statement I'm going to make, but this is my reality. The housing first model, where they put people in housing without stabilization, without wraparound services, without support services, and then they eventually return to the street because they never get around to all the things that they promised would happen, increases recidivism. Y'all, it's a setup. It's not a solution, it's a setup. So then we have the increase in the recidivism, and then they say, oh, well, this didn't work, so we're not putting no more money towards that. So why not have a comprehensive care plan to where you stabilize people? You make sure that whatever support services they need, it doesn't take much more than the preliminary evaluation that you do when they come through the door. They're going to tell you everything that they need. You're going to see. When I arrived in Houston, Texas, I had 32 cents in my pocket and the clothes on my back. They asked me, what do I need? Everything. And thank God I had a case manager. She gave me this trifold of every resource that it was, with the locations and the phone numbers and everything. And when I came back for my next appointment, she said, did you call in those places? No. Oh, you must have lost it. Here's another one. When I came back for my next appointment, she said, "Did you call in to those places?" I said, "No." She said, "You must have lost it." I held up the two that I already had. She said, "Well, why didn't you call a place?" Because when I get overwhelmed with a task, I shut down. One thing I know is there's such a thing as professional courtesy. They'll talk to you when they won't talk to me. From that moment on, my appointments consisted of her making calls with me sitting there and her making the connection with me talking if necessary. Help is not for the need. We will never meet the need because everybody needs something all the time, forever and a day. Help is for those who want it. And if you want it, you will be willing to do any and everything needed and necessary. But it takes those people who are in charge of facilitating this journey to treat you with dignity, respect, and understanding.
One of my favorite scriptures is this, James 5:8. It says, "You too exercise patience, make your hearts firm." And in harmony with what Charles said, they must exercise patience. People recover if you fully recover from the situation of what you've been through. My housing situation happened 15 years ago. I've been clean 15 years, but every day I'm still recovering. Housing first works, but it has to be monitored and it has to be given to the hands of people who understand how to work it. And then those organizations need to be monitored. Rochelle and I both are sitting on committees that at the end of every year, those people who are funded, we evaluate. And our organizations allow us to evaluate from people with lived experience, not from people who just care and says, "Oh, that's wonderful," but from people. So when I came to me and say, "Jeff, did you follow up?" No, I didn't. He'd come right back. And I use those same techniques. Hey, when I go knocking at my client, "Did you follow up?" No, I didn't. "I'll be back." "Would you like for me to follow up?" No, "I'll come right back." So, as that scripture says, we must exercise patience, but it has to be done from the heart.
I'm in agreement with so much that Jeff just said. I am a product and a success story of Housing First. I walked in the door with an ACT team wraparound services. Pathways to Housing DC knows what to do with the Housing First model. And it was a process. The first time I relapsed and went to them and said I relapsed, they didn't take my keys. The first time I went to them and said I'm in mental health crisis, I need a crisis bed, they didn't take my keys. I started to realize they weren't going to take my keys for any reason. And that's when my thought process started changing. They seen value in me that I needed to see in myself. And I might get emotional because I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that somebody seen something in me and they kept saying, "I see so much potential in you. I see so much potential in you." And I'm smoking crack 90 going north, running up and down the street, and I'm wondering who they're talking about. And they talking about me. Because look where I'm sitting today. But it took a lot of work from myself and people standing next to me holding my hand, the psychiatrist, the case manager, the family planning specialist, the person that showed me how to budget. I needed to be taught all those things and I had to remain teachable and humble. And today I still got to remain teachable and humble because I still don't know everything. But I'm 1,000 times the woman that walks in the door of Pathways to Housing DC because Housing First does work.
Not to mention just having the opportunity for people to have wraparound services, whether they need them or not, give them the choice to pick. Okay, well, I want to go on to our next question. Um, Co-creation. How essential is it to have individuals with lived experience in leadership and decision-making roles within organizations dedicated to ending homelessness? And what are the primary challenges to implementing true co-creation?
There is a long running program that has a bunch of variations to it. It's been tried, tested, and true. It was created on the first books of the Bible. That program is known as Alcoholics Anonymous. In the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, it clearly states that one alcoholic can better understand another of the same kind. In co creation, that's what needs to happen because one individual with lived experience can better understand and help another individual with lived experience. How can you C suite? You know what the C suite is, right? The COO, the CDO, the CFO, all of them, the whole C suite, who's never been where I've been, tell me what's the best way for me to come out. If you've never been through nothing, you don't have a testimony to tell anybody anything. So you strategize. Now you've brought in the strategic planner. And he wants to know, well, what you already got. And he just arranges what they already have and serves it back to them as 1, 2, 3's ABCs. But if you talk to me, I can tell you how I made it. I can be a living, breathing, tangible representation. You can see me. I can see all of you. And if nothing else, the visual perception of what you represent, what I represent, what we represent together can create a dialogue, can create a diagram, and create the destiny of what will really be a successful, creative, pattern, way, inclusive way to end homelessness. You can't do what you don't know.
Here, we've had the opportunity to understand how important it is to be a part of the programs when talking with people with lived experience and programs designed for them. So I'm going to address the challenge. If any of us sitting here are on boards, are on committees of you're part of it because you have lived experience, I always start with this. I want to be in the kitchen, not just the person that you serve the food to. How many times have you sat in a room where somebody hands you a proposal and says, here you go. Can the lived experience people sign off on this? And we're going to move on to our next project. I'm sorry, but I want it to be in the kitchen so I can tell you how much salt I like on my food. Am I a vegan? Do I like sweets? Don't hand me the meal and never ask me what it is that I wanted. That is the biggest challenge. And that's when we have to stand up and say, hey, I don't care when your NOFA's due. You didn't ask me to be a part of this. You just wanted me to sign it. And those are the changes that we need to make. We need to be in the kitchen and not just sitting at the table.
In my experience, I'm one of those people in the kitchen. I do the HUD NOFA ranking that just got released. I'll be ranking next week. So I made it to the kitchen because I fought my way to the kitchen because I got tired of being used to check a box. And at the beginning, I was like, okay, they're checking a box with me. I'm gonna check a box with them. But then I was like, I don't want to be a check box. I want to make a difference. So the co-creation is the organization I work for in DC, the People for Fairness Coalition. We are a lived experience organization of people that are homeless or formerly homeless, and we run the organization together. Like there's people in different stages of change, and I'm not gonna say it's not very tumultuous sometimes or trying, and I've got to pray and I've got to meditate and I've got to get through days some days. But for most days, when we stand strong, we stand together. We're having an annual memorial vigil for those that died without the dignity of a home. Every single person organizing this vigil, December 20th and 21st in DC, has some type of unhoused situation, formerly homeless, or in a different stage of change than what the director and I are. And it's just, I brought people on, so I thought I would have like minded people. And it's hard because even the like minded people that come, I'm in a 12-step program myself. As I stated, I have 11 years, 6 months clean and sober. So when I try to bring people in, some people leave because they can't handle it. You got to be built for it. To work with people just like you that were in different stages of change, just like you. So now, what I know what it was like working with me when I okay, when I had a closed mind and when I thought I knew everything and you couldn't tell me nothing. When I was just, they were just trying to help pull me up like I'm trying to help pull someone else up. But now we actually go to the Wilson Building on Advocacy Day, and it's all people that experience in the community coming together and advocate to make changes. And we are making a difference, one person at a time, sometimes a lot of people at a time.
So we do have one final question, but instead of our panelists answering this question, we're going to open this question up to our audience. So our last final question is individual responsibility. For every person in the audience, what is the single most actionable step that you can take tomorrow in your neighborhood, workplace, or social circle to practice and promote the humanization of people experiencing homelessness based off of what our amazing speakers have said today? And Francis, my colleague, will be walking around with the microphone for anybody who wants to answer. Don't be shy.
Be honest, don't hate me for this, but thank you so much for all that you shared. I'm very emotional right now. I'm very proud of all of you, everyone in this room. But I have to say, I feel like for me, the next level is reminding NCH of their social responsibility to prove that this is unconstitutional. There needs to be more than their stories from the NCH. So I'm going to be watching the news. And when we need to go, we need to go. Honestly, I do feel that social responsibility needs to be.
And I'm glad you said that because we have so many things in the works for next year. So. I agree.
And I too appreciate your stories, and I love the diversity of them. Being honest and saying, hey, I don't always agree with housing first, and you being honest and saying that I do. And I think the biggest thing that needs to happen, not only from the people with lived experience, but also from the social workers, the C suites that you mentioned, everybody in this work is listening, listening. And it's not just listening for what you want to hear, because again, people who are pro, housing first are going to listen to you, and they're going to say that Miss Garner over here is wrong and she doesn't know what she's talking about. You need to listen for whatever works for each particular client, because we are not all built the same. Just because it worked for somebody else in one location doesn't mean it worked for somebody else in another. And all three of you sounds like had good people in your corner fighting for you, fighting with you. And that makes a difference, because if you are completely checked out and you can't get in touch with somebody who's inspiring you to check in, then it's not going to work for you and you are going to keep flip flopping. But we also have to make space for the people who do continue to flip flop, because everybody's trauma is not the same.
And for those that are in our virtual platform, please put your questions in the Hoover app and I will speak on them shortly.
So one way I wanted to bring something to, when I go back home and take my dignity, respect, and understanding is one thing I started doing is I stopped saying experiencing homelessness. Cause like I'm experiencing this conference. You know what I mean? That just means I'm being aware. But like when I'm surviving homelessness, like I'm enduring, I'm trying to get my basic needs met. I know when I was under the viaduct and eating out of garbage cans, it was not an experience. It was straight survival. So, language matters. And I know we went back and forth about, houseless, homeless. I was homeless. I was a homeless crack user as a result of the trauma that I had endured. You know what I'm saying? So, one, language matters. So, I try to, treat them with dignity and respect those that I work with now that are surviving homelessness. Is I try to give them the dignity of knowing what they're having to endure one day to the next. And that may mean drug use because I could not lay down comfortably under the viaduct without having to pass out. You understand? So that's one way for me.
And thank you for that new ideal of instead of using experiencing homelessness to more so enduring or surviving homelessness. I like that a lot.
Yes, ma'am. And I have to underscore that Sister Tamala said as far as surviving, because that is what I use in my testimony, and like being a survivor of domestic violence and experiencing that, which of course led to then the surviving homelessness, and now I'm being in the fortunate situation of being housed. But to bring it back to the committees and places that I am now involved in, I personally have always been a self-motivated, self-driven type of individual. So showing up, standing out, and speaking out are my ideas, as I will continue to do. I am new to the whole platform and even being part of the COC where I'm from. And I'm grateful to and honored, honestly, to have been recommended this conference. And I've enjoyed the speakers and sharing your experiences and your testimonies and ideas to help, even going forward and growing. I do have a question, if you don't mind, and I don't know if anybody would be able to answer this, but like, I don't know how many people are even aware, going back to the criminalization aspect that we were talking about. Certain states, probably all of them, to be honest, at this point, have a order, if you will, in conjunction or connection or cahoots, whatever, with the state government to keep a certain level of occupancy in the jails and prisons. My question is, how or what do we even have available? How do we protect ourselves against the system that is trying to criminalize us? Are there any, do we have, lawyers on standby, or, you know what I mean? Like, how can we actually bypass this? Yes, it's one thing for to say like the numbers and all of that are increasing, but what are we going to do about it to protect ourselves and the ones in that position?
I like to tell you about an initiative. On this past Wednesday, I was in a meeting with one of our the local network of providers. And at that meeting was present the current DA and the judges for homeless court, as well as the law program that defends and puts those people who are in homeless courts, those people who have received these tickets or whatever it is, getting locked up for loitering, for being, or what have you. We have an organization that has a law department that is totally there for the sake of people, for the vulnerable community. And it's a part of the network. And homeless court has contingencies. You don't just go to the law place and sign up, oh, I got a ticket, get rid of it. You have to actually go through a program to be eligible, then to have your tickets dismissed, and have you. And my local Healthcare for the Homeless Center is just relaunched its jail in reach program, where while people are getting ready to come out, they are screened and prepared to have a segue straight into consideration for services.
There's also national movements as well. There's also called the National Homeless Law Center. And they also track things on a national level, even to the point of they're tracking the $1 billion cuts that have been made to HUD funding right now that will affect approximately 177,000 households if the budget cuts do go into effect. They track such things as the detention camps that states like Denver are trying to put in place with 800 beds and et cetera. But I would recommend you to take your new voice and that nuance, that newness that you have, and scream from the top. And don't act like you have experience. Just open your mouth and keep it moving.
I'm just going to take it one step further. The director of the National Homeless Law Center, her name is Amber Harding. We're on the Way Home Steering Committee together. And any questions you have, just reach out to Amber.
Oh, hi guys. I just wanted to say thank you for your stories. I'm also a part of the NCH's Speakers Bureau. And one thing that I've learned through NCH's Speakers Bureau and in this room today is, and things that a lot of us can do moving forward is not to dull down our stories. They are our stories for a reason. And oftentimes we're put in these rooms that want us to be professional about what we're going through. And we were talking about language, but part of that, like you said, is I am homeless. That's the vulgarity of it. We are experiencing and surviving and going through these things. And I am homeless. Call me homeless because that's what it is. And everyone has the right to feel how they want about how they would like to be addressed. But I know for me, say that I'm homeless. Stick with me through the vulgarity of the situation because it is tough. And we can't walk into these rooms and demand these things that work for us without addressing the vulgarity of the situation.
I'm Alethea and I'm from Atlanta. And what I'm doing is I just recently was at Clark Atlanta University and was just graduated and I got accreditation for working. Thank you. Love it. I had to go first. I was the first presenter that day. But working with the neighborhoods to actually push the beloved housing and I guess, movement, development, whatever, but it's not just a local thing. So I'm trying to expose the fact that myself, I'm a veteran mom, not myself, my sons are veterans, and I have two daughters also. They go to Coretta Scott King Young Women's Leadership Academy. So I took them to different things and events with me, like the housing day at the Capitol, and I let them talk and meet different people. And I'm exposing what homelessness looks like. Me, my family, where do my veteran sons go if I have nowhere to live? My mic was shut off by the people down there at the Capitol in my neighborhood. And I went and talked, because I talked about House Bill 295, which is criminalizing with an incentive, a cash incentive for these businesses and private people that are right there in the community. And I had a white t-shirt on that I used a Sharpie that said, "Am I a criminal? Please don't wink at me while you want to sit there and cut my mic off. I don't care what you think I look like." That's not cute. And I then took my daughters to that housing day, and the man that cut my mic off wanted to talk to the pretty girl. So I shook his hand. And we both dawned on each other that this is how I know you. Instead of being funky and weird, I said, "And these are the girls I told you all about." So I let those little girls, like I stated earlier, get lost in the community at that housing day at the Capitol. And I found them, frustrated as I was, about to go into another meeting, in a senator's office. We have a new friend. Her name is Megan. She's a senator, assistant, whatever, but she's up there. She got my daughters both into the PAGE program that they were working on to House Bill 295. So if I was a criminal for being homeless, where would these girls be? Who knows? But they wouldn't be sitting with you, passing House bills next to you on the same pay bill, people, everybody on the same roster. So yeah, that bill didn't get passed, but I'm bringing awareness with my children, with everybody, no matter where. I post pictures on social media. We are the face of homelessness. I don't care. I don't care. This is what it is. I've had other people in the years wanted my father to lose his job because you're a congressman and you want to give that to a small company to do this. It didn't work out. And I asked then, you want my dad to lose his job? And I still went out and campaigned with you. I don't care. You're my friend's dad. So ask the questions, be an agitator, bring your kids into it. I go to the schools. I talk to everybody. I don't care if I'm on the street. I talk to them all. That's what I'm taking back.
Thank you so much for that. You want to speak? And we do only have a couple minutes left, so you'll be our last one, and then I'll open it up for any questions.
Okay. My name is Nikki, and I'm from Orlando. And in answer to the question, what am I doing or what am I going to do? Um, I am surviving homelessness in Orlando. And first of all, I want to say something to everyone who is within the sound of my voice who has survived any form of addiction. I completely applaud you for all that it has taken for you to get through that. But my objective is to bust the myth that everyone who is experiencing homelessness is addicted, because it is a negative that they're trying to use against you and me and everyone who's ever had to deal with anything that has to do with homelessness. The homelessness that I have experienced over my life has never been because of an addiction. It has been because of abuse. And the last, I guess, season for me was because in 2005, I was in 3 auto accidents. I was diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury. And I had not only to survive that, but to deal with the system that said I would not get my first disability check for 6 months. 6 months with a disability, with no income, without a job, means that you are surviving through homelessness on the concrete. Most of the time, I stepped outside my lawyer's office on the street because I didn't have anywhere to go. But my mission is to bust every myth that there is about homelessness. I have an outreach ministry, connections ministry in Akai's Closet, that is to people who are also experiencing homelessness right now. And a lot of them, like you said, have to be intoxicated to sleep on concrete. I slept on concrete in front of the U-Haul where my storage was, on cardboard, and it was not a pleasant night. So there are just these myths that people try to put out about homelessness that just means you're unhoused. You have no money to pay for the rent. You can't find rent. And those do not make us less than a human being. And that is my mission, for people to understand we are humans in the United States just wanting a life.
Thank you so much for everyone's take and responses. I do want to open it up for questions, but if we could be brief, because I know that you probably have the next workshop you'd like to attend in about 13 minutes. So, any questions?
Great day, all. Um, I just have an observation. Even those that have never experienced homelessness, and that are housed and that have a house, um, through what I went through, we lost everything in probate court, right? Uh, that's when I journeyed into getting a financial education. And I realized that even now, with foreclosures on the rise, some of these people's equity in their homes are being stolen by the states, right? And so there are billions of dollars that are sitting in these accounts in state and local governments. Their obligation is not to call you and tell you you have $100,000 here, or you have $1 million here, or you have this or that. So I'm sitting and I'm just looking at it from that aspect, and I'm looking at it from the other aspect, because I went through it. We lost everything. They came and took everything. My father was a multimillionaire, and through probate court, it lasted 13 years, which means everyone in the system got paid to manage that and to whatever, but that's here or there. But I'm just saying, to me, I see a bigger picture um, of some intentionalities of some of these systems and things that are put into place. And I'm just wanting to um, really don't know what to say about it. I just know that uh, it's criminal for the heirs of those who have worked hard their whole lives to have their assets taken away from them and their families being put on the street.
Thank you. Any other questions? In the back? Or comments or observations?
Hello, everyone. Blair from Chicago, LEC. Um, so my question was, and I don't want it to be a long one, but what messaging or language helped shift the local leaders or anyone who has been doing this away from punishment or criminalizing homelessness? What language or words have been used?
Sorry, our runner Francis taking off slow. It's going slow.
And let me make sure I'm answering the question correctly. You asked what language has been used to shift the ideology about homelessness and criminal. Oh, yes. Uh, for me, those three words. Those three words are part of the mission statement of the original place of the where I walk through, the doors that I walk through. They promote help, hope, and dignity. But what gets it away from criminalization for me is simply we are the people. We are people. And when you address me as a person and not as the situation that I'm in, then I hear you. And if I say it to myself, I hear me. So I think that the language I need to hear, I should speak it in my own ears because I'm a licensed minister as well and speak those things that be not as though they were. Our words become our reality. So if I don't like what I'm hearing, I talk to me and I answer me.
For me, the phrase that we've heard over and over again always resonates to me when we talk about criminalization of homelessness. And it's just this: housing is a human right. And that takes criminalization off the table for me every time that I hear that phrase.
My name is Robbie. I'm from California, San Jose. Like people, you know, like the homeless people in San Jose, they're like 300 people that they all got kicked out where they was at because the cops came in, Cal Chandler came in, told me, hey, you got 5 minutes to get your stuff out, and now you can lose it all. And people lost a lot of stuff. I think it's the mayor, the governor, and said making the problem worse, make it better. Go get a piece of land and put a bathroom on it in the shower and in the washer and dryer. Give them a workshop. Get them back on the feet. And said they had kids. Why don't they put their shoe on the other foot? It said this guy here is a piece of shit. Oh, this guy here, and this woman here, see nobody. Take all the stuff because they got a home they go to. The people I feel sorry for, I got housing now. It sounds like, thank God for that. But I feel sorry for the ones who don't. People still see on the sidewalks. I see everywhere. It's sad. Especially when it rains, it's cold, no place to go. They need to they need to focus on the problem, not put to the side. You know, we are human beings, okay, and people need to see that because you know you might be born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Guess what? Not everybody, nobody is like that, you know. But we all should be equal. Hey, you get extra money? Hey, donate it. Help people who need it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, we are at the end of our presentation as the next workshop is filing in 5 minutes. So we appreciate you so much for attending, and it's still in the same room, but we appreciate you so much for attending, and we hope that you got a lot of information from this workshop, and please enjoy the rest of the conference. No, it's a different one. It's it's me. I don't, but I have an email. You want to reach out to me, of course.
The Live Experience Training Academy, is that like discrete training sessions or is that kind of like you log on and?
Yeah, so you log on and it has all of the training sessions and you can do them at your pace, and we also have our leader coordinator. We also do provide in-person sessions and trainings for organizations that request them all around the country. So it's very versatile depending on what the need is. Cool. Okay. I got it.
All right.
Great job. Appreciate you. Amazing.